Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, a bunch of entitled hikers constantly trespassed on my property and then claimed that they legally got the right of way to do it. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. The title story starts like this. There's a unique breed of creature that can only be found in England. They are known as the ramblers. Initially, you may think that they are just hikers, but no, hikers are something completely different. They are people that like to walk in nature, respect nature, and leave no trace. And well, ramblers, on the other hand, don't care for the right of way. They like to gather up rocks and plants because they think they look interesting and will discard their rubbish wherever they see fit. Ramblers have caused a lot of property damage all across the country because they feel that they practically own everything. So I bought a house not too long ago as my family was growing and needed more space. We moved to a nice little rural place away from the noise and bustle of big town living. My daughter wanted the peace and quiet so that she could study being a vet, and my son spent all his time locked away in his room making content for YouTube and Twitch gaming. We also needed to make room for a new baby joining the family. We happened to find a house that backed onto a little wooded area and farmers' fields beyond that. Now, I wish that I could say that the only problem we had with the place was the smell when the farmers were spreading fertilizer. Sadly, that was not the case, and I'm sure you can figure out what the problem was by the introduction. It was the bloody ramblers. To make it clear, I don't have any problems with people hiking. I did not even have any trouble with how they would walk past the back of the house. The wooded area used to be one of those farmed forests from back in the 1800s, where they would use the trees to make chairs or something, so the trees had been fashioned to grow in such a way to make the process easier. There were some really funky trees in that little wooded area. My problem was with the fact that these ramblers would come right into my garden, use my garden furniture so they could have a picnic and leave their rubbish all over the place, thinking that they had the public right of way. I know what you're thinking, why not put up a fence? Well, that sort of thing is not that easy to do in England. There are some real mazes of red tape you have to go through. The worst one being that if you wanted to erect a fence up to 2 meters, you had to get the permission from the neighbors. And well, the problem there was that the neighbors were non-existent. One house was empty still, and the other, the neighbors were rarely there. They had a house in London and they lived in there most of the time. The best I could do was to set up a little meter-high wire fence which did nothing to stop the ramblers getting into my garden and running amok. I was getting so frustrated with having to come out all the time to tell people to move on as they were on my private property. So this is where the difference between a rambler and a hiker comes in. In my opinion, a hiker would realize they are trespassing, apologize and move on, never to set foot in my garden again. A rambler, on the other hand, will argue until they are blue in the face that they have the right of way. Most ramblers are day trippers, so when I ask them to move, they put up a bit of an argument, I warn them that I will call the police, and they move on. Never to be seen again, but there was one family of ramblers that I would see almost every other week, and for the sake of brevity, we shall call them the Kyle and Karen family. The first time I saw them and attempted to shoo them away, they told me that they'd been walking these woods for years and never had a problem before. They were even on friendly terms with the previous occupants of the house. I tell them that the previous occupants had now moved on and that the property was mine now, and I did not want them coming onto my property and leering through my windows. Of course, being a Karen, the mother was adamant that she still had the right of way and there was nothing I could do to stop her. She was not wrong about it either. Even when I put up a little wire fence one weekend, I come home from shopping to find that it had been cut and my garden was absolutely trashed. Naturally, I brought this to the attention of the authorities, who told me they couldn't do anything unless I had proof. It was basically my word against theirs. That there, ladies and gentlemen, is the British policing system for you. Unwilling to do absolutely anything unless they see it happening themselves. So then I installed CCTV cameras, put up signs refusing right of way, warning people that they were on CCTV. And for the most part, this was enough to deter the average rambler, but I feel I may have just provoked the Karen family even more, and they took it as a personal challenge. Now, I started to find dog poop all over my garden. I then look at the CCTV footage, and sure enough, the Karen family now had a couple of dogs that they let poop all over the place. When I took the footage to the authorities, they yet again informed me that there was not much they could do, as it looked like the Karen family was just retrieving their runaway dogs from my garden. The best they could do was issue a fine for dog fouling. At least it was something, but that something had a nasty way of coming back to haunt me. The Karen family were now avid ramblers and spent most weekends in their small family group coming by my house and just so happened to drop all their rubbish onto my garden. It was getting infuriating, especially when the Kyles would come around when my daughter was out in the garden and start latching, making her uncomfortable. I felt like going out there with a rolling pin and bashing some heads in, but I knew it was only gonna look bad on me. A few months later, and a stroke of luck came. The neighbors were on a long weekend away from London and I was able to talk to them about putting up a fence. Luckily for me, they were also eager to put up a fence, but the house, my house, was empty for a while and they were unable to get permission. Fencing laws are really strange in Britain. As I said before, when you own a garden, your responsibility is only on the right-hand side in most cases and could put up whatever fence you wanted up to 2 meters. So with me giving my neighbor permission, I was finally able to put up a fence all around my garden. Turns out I did not need to ask permission from my other neighbor, the empty house, so up went the fence and I could finally sleep easy knowing that the wild ramblers were finally sealed out of my property. Well, I was naive to think it was over. It took a few days to get the fencing up and at that time, panels would go missing overnight or things would be broken. I knew what was happening. I did not need to look at the CCTV to know the Karen family were being the degenerates they were, but they would always have their faces covered and so there was no proof of it that it was them vandalizing my property. That was until one fortunate evening when the fencing was all up and I was pottering about the garden as the last of the evening light faded, that I heard hushed whispers. It was the Kyles from the Karen family plotting to bring down my fence. And well, I let them, knowing that if I scared them away, I would not be able to catch them in the act and finally have them convicted. I let them pull down my fence and boy did they get a shock when they saw me waiting for them. They were giving it large, talking big and all as I was telling them to bugger off. One got close enough that I was able to snatch away their snapbacks and getting their faces in full view of the CCTV, to which they panicked and ran off, but it was too late. I took the footage to the police and they finally got off their lazy asses and did something now that they had definitive proof. I pressed all the charges I could, providing hours of CCTV footage of all the crap they had done, from vandalism, dog fouling, a serious crime in England, harassment, destruction of personal property, littering is apparently a chargeable offense too, and not just a finable offense, which I found particularly amusing. In the end, they were fined for the damages physical and mentally, and were made to do 175 hours community service. Some of the charges they managed to get off, as it was difficult to determine if they'd been the culprits. Some of the footage was too dark to make anything out, and they avoided jail time by the skin of their teeth. But at the end of the day, I was vindicated and I have not seen the Karen family in over a year now. And here, ripe stars, if you still enjoy these stories about entitled people and entitled neighbors, then please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and maybe even like the video if you wish to support me. Thank you so much, and the next one is an absolutely awesome, wholesome story. It starts like this. So I am at the gate for my flight home from visiting friends and there's a woman here with a service Shiba Inu. No pictures because he has a do not disturb vest and taking pictures of strangers is illegal, but I need to stress how on duty this animal is. Ears up, eyes doing laser scans of everything, examining everyone who passes within 10 feet like a security guard. Ass planted on her feet, I've never seen a dog with such intense chivalric guardian energy before. He has tiny eyebrows and they are furrowed with concentration. Part 2 of the story, the man behind me is having unhinged phone conversation. There's an internationally famous dairy in the area I was visiting and he was commissioned by the lady on the other end of the phone to collect specific cheeses from there. The lady is very high-strung about the type and condition of the cheese. The man does not know from cheese. The man said, "I ain't never seen no cheese but orange before." And "I showed you the list" to the cheese lady, so if it's wrong, it's her fault, okay? I'm 80% sure she sent him there for a really specific blue cheese, 40% sure he does not have the very specific blue cheese, and 100% sure he is done with her crap. Our flight is delayed, he does not have the cheeses in a cooler, just a regular backpack. Part 3, I need to emphasize that there's no cooler bag in the backpack. He has a Jan Sport backpack that is jam-packed with cheeses. There's apparently $405 worth of cheeses in that backpack, which I know because he has been trying to get the lady to Venmo him the expense, which she has failed to do. It's unclear whether his relation to the lady is romantic, familial or what, but I'm leaning towards what. 2 more people have joined us. One of them is a very elegant man with a perfect manicure in a tailored business suit. The other one is a neon-haired person of indeterminate gender wearing a fox kirigumi. The Shiba Inu has been staring at the letter for 3 minutes now. Part number 4. The cheese man has been demanding payment because apparently he went like 6 hours out of his way and paid with his own money, and between the cheese and price of gas, he is pretty sure he does not have enough money in his account for an Uber home. The lady is flabbergasted that he is demanding payment at all, as she was under the impression that he was doing this for her out of the goodness of his heart. He is not having it though. He is insisting that she told him she would pay him back, and he would have gotten her maybe one cheese somewhere closer to his business in the area out of love, but he went out of his way because she agreed to pay him the costs plus extra to cover it. Part number 5. He recorded the conversation in which she promised to pay for the cheese. She is that much of a flake. I'm about to offer this man cash for some of these cheeses because our flight is now more delayed. Part number 6. You always do this. You always do this and I fall for it every time. No, F you. If you're not gonna pay me, you don't get fancy cheese. Or else what? I'm gonna... The baby shower? Monica cannot even have this cheese. She is pregnant. The cheese lady asked if it was for someone because the mushrooms or whatever in the cheese are dangerous for the baby or something. You wanna poison Monica? Why would I lie about that? Yeah, of course I got the cheese. That's why I don't got money for Uber. Yeah, go tell mama that I stopped your stupid ass from killing Monica or the baby. And then hangs up the phone. Head in hands, borderline hyperventilating, the man in the 3-piece suit is in the chair next to him. He waits a moment and then reaches into his carry-on and pulls out an entire bottle of wine with the TSA pre-check sticker on it and taps the cheese guy on the shoulder. If your friend doesn't want it, would you be amenable to having it right now? Part number 7. Naturally, I've volunteered my box of wheat thins and offered to buy one of the harder cheeses, which would be fine if it makes it home. Part number 8. Meanwhile, Kirigumi has noticed that the Shiba Inu is staring at her and is correctly intimidated. Part number 9. This is some really great camembert. I've compensated the cheese guy accordingly, so have like 6 other people. He has recouped like half his losses. The cheese guy is crying a little about the cash and opening up about his problems. The cheese lady is his younger sister. The suit guy is being very generous with his Pinot Blanc. We are having a picnic and improv family therapy session. This is apparently the latest in a long string of his sister asking for something and then flaking when he asks to be paid back. Started with paying him back only some of what he was owed and then claiming something she paid for him was of equal value when it was not, and then recently telling him his memory is wrong and he said it was a gift or that he would do it for free. Yeah, the specific thing of trying to convince you your memory is unreliable is called gaslighting, and it's really effed up. I say yeah. The other stuff I forgave because she's never really had a good job, so she cannot pay me back all the time, but at least she was making an effort, you know? But that was that. That was over the line. If you haven't already, check on the rest of your family's finances. My brother started trying to gaslight everyone when he started stealing from our parents. Now the Shiba Inu lady has purchased a cheddar and apparently the dog's name is Donut and he's her service dog because she is severely visually impaired. Oh, he's a guide dog? Asks the cheese guy. Oh no, she laughs. He is too short and the way my eyes are, it's easier for me to navigate with a cane. No, the problem I have is that some morally impaired people see the cane and they think they can get away with stealing my bag or assaulting me because I wouldn't be able to give a description. Which is wrong, but rather than deal with that, I got Donut and he helps me by howling at anyone who gets in my personal space and biting anyone who grabs me. Says Kirigumi, he's been staring at me. Do I need to back up or something? Oh dear, no, he was not looking at you. He loves cheese, but he knows he is not supposed to beg, so he decided the way to deal with something he wants but cannot have is to stare in the other direction. Okay, says Kirigumi, I'm wearing fox pajamas and I thought like, he thought I was another dog or something. No, he doesn't care about dogs and you get a warning before he goes for the calves. Well, that's very helpful when I was living in Italy. Oh, what part? I have family in Tuscany, says Pinot. Does he want a cheese? There's still so much cheese, says the cheese guy. Part 10, plane may be arriving. I'm paying for in-flight Wi-Fi to keep you all updated. Part number 11. The cheese guy had sold all but 2 or 3 cheeses that he and Pinot are going to eat on the flight. I know they are planning to continue because Pinot talked to the gate agent so he and cheese guy can sit together and talk about family drama and cheese. Pinot has been teaching him about different types of cheese and how to enjoy them, and the cheese guy apparently repairs computers and other technology devices for a living and is currently doing the software version of scraping barnacles and other crap off Pinot's MacBook. Pinot is now convinced that the cheese guy is the smartest and most interesting man in the world. Final update, okay, so the Wi-Fi was not working on the plane, also like non-stop turbulence, and also they got seated in a different row from me, but now that I've heard the word loud and they are an astrophysicist, astrophysicist who correctly believes in being comfy as F on planes, they are also familiar with the concept of a meet cute and is rooting for them too. Edit, the astrophysicist is the Kirigumi wearer. Also, I got to walk the nice lady and her tactical assault Shiba to her next gate because it was on the way out and talk for a bit. Donut is called that not because he's the color of a donut, which he is, but because he likes to sleep curled in a perfect circle. He got a sister who does the same thing named Bagel. Also, I lost track of Pinot and Cheese Guy for a bit, but when I saw them again at baggage claim, the Cheese Guy was holding both their jackets and Pinot was on the phone to his hotel about, well, do you have any rooms with 2 beds? The rest of the call indicated that yes, there were rooms with 2 beds, but readers, I had a moment. Anyway, it's 2 AM, I need to sleep. If you feel like supporting this kind of hard-hitting reporting, I have a tip jar. And yeah, ripe stars, I gotta say, I've been to many airports in my life and on many flights, but I've never had a situation like that happen. Maybe it's just different here in Asia and people tend to not talk that much with strangers, especially at airports. Then again, that was an awesome and wholesome encounter. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. That the term Karen is usually used to refer to just one person. In this instance though, the entire family I was dealing with was like a giant Karen. Since I don't want to get things too confusing, I will call the mother Karen and the 2 boys son 1 and son 2. Just know that they are all basically Karens and have the same level of entitlement and horrible attitude. Working at a hotel means that I get to deal with people on a daily basis acting horrible. It's sadly part of the job that people treat hotel staff like garbage. Most of the time it's because of poor planning on their part and just taking it out on us. Like the number of times people show up the wrong day or with a bigger group and then act like it was my fault. This family was on a totally different level and you will see it escalate far more than I would have anticipated. Anyway, it started with Karen and her 2 sons entering the lobby in a loud and obnoxious way. Now, both of the sons were over 18, so these were 2 more fully grown adults too. Karen was complaining about there not being a valet for her car and nobody asking for help with her luggage. The boys were just loudly saying that this hotel was crap and nobody should stay here. Of course I had to intervene and try to calm them down. Me? Excuse me? Did you say that nobody was there to valet your car or help with bags? There should be people right out front when you pull up. Would you like me to get them to tend to your car? Karen, I didn't pull up in the front. I was in the back and not a single person came to check on me. Now it makes sense because there's no back entrance or reason to think that you should pull up there. Me, I'm sorry about that. We can also help you with your bags. Nobody probably saw you coming from the back. I can get somebody to take your bags after I check you in. Son number 2, yeah, and I bet he's gonna want a big fat tip too. Son number 2, screw that, he should have been helping us from the start. Let's just go to our room. I started to check them in, even though I knew there might be a problem. They arrived before check-in starts, and unless their room was not occupied the night before, it would not be ready. I usually tell people this, but I checked anyway because I wanted them out of my lobby causing any problems. Sadly, no room was ready, and I had to explain this to Karen that she was just too early. So I told her that she could leave her bags here and go out for a few hours and that the room would be ready by then. She got pissed and it didn't take long for her sons to chime in too, about the long drive they had and wanting their room. I tried to explain check-in times to her, but she did not listen to a word of it. Instead, they all started talking over each other, demanding free things for the inconvenience. Now, I do have the power to do certain things if we messed up to keep guests happy. I was not gonna waste anything on these rude Karens that we didn't even do anything to. They were early, and in the confirmation email we tell people about check-in times. I had to get them to stop yelling though, so I offered them some free vouchers I had for the restaurant. This way they could sit and eat, and by the time they were done, the room would be ready. I don't like rewarding bad behavior, but we are not allowed to cancel a guest's reservation for something like that. And thankfully, it seemed to work and they went away until the room was ready. But then it was time for round 2. They demanded an upgraded room for the trouble, and I was drawing the line at that. We are pretty strict with room upgrades, and they were asking to be upgraded from a standard room to a suite for no additional charge. That was not gonna happen, but again, I did not want to make things worse, so I told them all the suites were fully booked. They could either take the room they reserved in the first place or refuse to check in. They would still get charged though, and upon hearing that, they finally agreed and went to their room. Most of the time after checking in with a hard customer, things go smoothly. People are tired and grumpy from traveling. This family decided though to go for some kind of hotel destruction record. I went off shift in the afternoon, but because somebody got sick, I ended up working again at night. It really was not the day for me. I got a call at the front desk around 10 PM, and guess who it was? Not Karen actually, but a totally different person, talking about how they were on the 3rd floor and smelled smoke. I sent somebody up there to check it out and figured that somebody was smoking like a cigarette or something, or even weed. Not loud, but nothing to go crazy over. I was wrong, and the employee had to pull the fire alarm because inside Karen's room, she along with her sons had started a fire. To the bed and curtains, the fire quickly spread, and soon a substantial part of the floor Karen's room was on got damaged by the fire as well. Quick spoiler alert, these entitled maniacs caused over $100,000 in damages. Later, when we all stood outside the building, the police were asking questions and looking around. Karen was pissed that she heard me tell them it was her room, and I was suspicious that it was, of course, intentional. She attacked me, but since she did not have an actual weapon, she used the only thing she could grab. I was getting clobbered right in the head and face. I knew the police were about to grab her logically, but my body took over and I hit her with the force of my anger of every bad guest ever. The police had her cuffed and EMTs helping me within 2 minutes. I did not even know at first that the Karen broke my nose. Now, upon her getting hit by me, the sons went crazy and wanted their turn to break something on me as well. They each needed like 3 cops to cuff them and keep them down because they were acting so aggressively. Once the shock wore off, I really felt my broken nose but had to wait until I could go to the hospital. I was the only higher level employee there, so my manager had to wake up and come in before I could leave. In the meantime, I gave my statements and pressed charges, the events of earlier, and watching them all get taken away in police cars. And then I finally went to the ER to get my nose reset and to make sure nothing else was broken. My manager gave me the rest of the week off to heal both physically and mentally from what happened. It took about 3 days for my mind to get back to a normal state after those events. I didn't have to go to court or anything, but I did find out that all 3 of them ended up being sent to jail for arson and drug use. It turns out that on their intake they had all tested positive for a bunch of stuff and had even more in their bags. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.